So what would you say the maximum number is that you would allow for a retreat?
Yeah, I did a mentorship a couple of years ago with an amazing shamanic practitioner, and she told me the golden number is 12.
12.
And I've stuck to that ever since. She teaches you how to heal whatever it is you need to heal through your voice and connecting back with your voice.
Wow.
So she, within the small group, she picked every single person what they needed to work on, or what their shadow was, if you like. And she nailed it with every single person.
Do you think your intention has changed over since you started teaching as opposed to now?
Absolutely. Yeah, it was, at the beginning it was, I need to learn sequences and I need to rock people's socks off and all of this, and now it's just, I see you, let me help you to understand your body and get into a beautiful shape that helps you feel safe and nourished.
Hi, I'm Megan from Momoyoga. So welcome to this community chat. We're here today with Fyona from Yoga Brave. So it's lovely to have you here. Before we begin, just a very brief introduction about community chats. So the intention is really to connect with the yoga community. So that includes yoga teachers, but also I think to try and bring some guidance to yogis who are just starting on their teaching journey and might have some questions or be a little bit confused as to how to be a yoga teacher. So before we begin, perhaps Fyona, if you would like to introduce perhaps yourself and your studio.
Sure, thank you. My name is Fyona. I have a yoga studio in East Maitland, New South Wales, Australia, and I've been teaching for 7 years, and I've had my studio or my space for 6 years. I teach general classes, weekly classes, about 7 or 8, some private classes as well. And I run several events and yoga retreats, both local and internationally.
Fantastic, wonderful. So indeed, you said it yourself, the subject of today's conversation is going to be events. So for those who don't know, events can sort of include or involve anything that is a retreat. It could be a workshop, it could be a ceremony. Some people tend to do maybe cacao ceremonies, sound bath. It could be kind of anything. So I wanted to ask you first and foremost, I did have a little peek and I saw that you use events. So perhaps if you want to sort of tell us what the advantage is for you to use or to organize events over, for example, a regular class.
Yeah, I was very happy when Momoyoga introduced that into the scheduling. I feel it's important to have that separation so that people don't get confused about whether they can use their usual pass for an event, or it's really clear, the ticketing process. But for me, it just helps it to stand alone. It's a separate offering. It's obviously a separate price. And it makes it so easy to create that event within Momoyoga, but then copy that link onto your website or any other marketing. So it all links in, it brings it back to one place that they're already familiar with, they're already registered. And love it.
Brilliant.
Love it.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So I actually wanted to ask you, obviously you said about sharing the link. Do you tend to share information about your retreats and things like that on social media? Is there a specific way that you do it as a studio?
Yeah, I across a few platforms, so social media, all of those platforms, integrated onto the website. So it's already integrated there as a permanent fixture, but the events is separate, a separate tab. And then I also do a direct marketing. So I'll send it out in an email through, through that format.
Okay, fantastic.
So MailChimp or whatever, we use. So it just makes it so easy. You just set it up in one place and then you can set it out.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
How do your yogis respond, would you say, to your events? Are they excited? Obviously, like you mentioned, there can be a different price related to those type of events, especially when it comes to retreats. Not necessarily, obviously, maybe a sound bath ceremony might be slightly similar price range to a class. But do you feel that it's sort of your regular yogis who tend to join the retreats, or is it drop-in yogis? What is the response there?
It does vary. So with retreats, local retreats, it tends to be the usual students, and might bring a friend. So they might introduce a friend who hasn't been to classes, which is really interesting. I did just promote one recently in the Blue Mountains in New South Wales, and it sold out within a week. And that was the first time I'd actually used the events for a retreat. So that was cool to know that that worked really well. But it sold out to one particular class on the timetable. They've become friends through the community of attending regular classes. And they're like, oh, let's all go. And yeah, a couple of them brought friends and all of a sudden that was sold out.
Oh, that's nice.
But I find with the international retreats, it's a little more varied. So people will sign up for those who have never been to one of my classes.
When you say
they've never met me.
Whereabouts would that be, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, so last year I ran 2 retreats in Vanuatu and 1 in Vietnam. So with all of those, there were people who I'd never met before.
Wow, so that must require some organization, I presume. Is the juice worth the squeeze, so to speak? I mean, obviously there's the enjoyment factor, there is the traveling factor, which is for me an advantage, I would say, but for some people might be a little bit trickier. Do you enjoy them? Do you enjoy them?
I love them. It was last year was a big one, and Vietnam was a huge retreat. It was it's a lot more traveling. And we had a heat wave while we were there, and a couple of other factors, COVID and whatnot. But it's you need to be prepared for the big stuff, the big shifts with people. So you're holding a bigger space. And the weekly classes are fantastic, but people go there for lots of different reasons, not necessarily the true yoga experience. Might be a bit of a stretch or a bit of time out, but retreats, people want to go there and shift and change and have a big experience. And you have to be ready for whatever comes up. So Vietnam was incredible. That was the biggest one.
Because also, well, like you say, people are out of their comfort zones, of course. But I know myself traveling, there's so many factors to take into account. For example, I went to Mexico in September, just the changing climates, the change in obviously being able to drink water or not, the food that you eat. My strength was very different. Altitude as well, things we don't realize, but Mexico City is higher in altitude. So suddenly I was like, what is going on? I'm trying to walk up a hill and my heart was pounding, and I was like, okay, clearly I'm not very fit in Mexico. So I can presume also emotionally people are a little bit more vulnerable in a good way, of course, but that's a big responsibility for you to hold space for that. How do you manage to look after yourself during those times, or do you continue practicing yoga yourself?
Absolutely. You need to be quite diligent with your own practice. I think when you're away, especially when you're away with people and out of your comfort zone. So maintaining your own spiritual practice and just remembering that it's a privilege to have this experience with people during that time. It's not many people get to share that. So it's a huge privilege.
Imagine. And also when it comes to the sort of characteristics of your retreats, I can imagine that you choose maybe a lower number of spots to ensure that you also are able to be present for everybody. I can imagine perhaps sometimes in classes, I know we live in the Netherlands. I go to yoga studios in Amsterdam. Sometimes there may be up to 50 people. I think if I turned up to a retreat and we were 50 yogis, I wouldn't feel like I could just turn to you and have you guide me through that experience. So what would you say the maximum number is that you would allow for a retreat?
Yeah, I did a mentorship a couple of years ago with an amazing shamanic practitioner, and she told me the golden number is 12,
12.
and I've stuck to that ever since. So that's my maximum number.
Okay, 12 seems it's still quite a lot, obviously, if you're trying to deal with all of that, but still a good number to remember. So golden number is 12. Everybody remember that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And her thinking was, well, her energy to that is there's 12 and 13 is the priestess number. So you are the holder of the space of those 12 people.
Wow, that is beautiful.
Yeah.
So
Which
your
feels, felt
yeah,
good.
I can imagine. And so obviously Vietnam, for example, what made you choose those locations?
Well, Vietnam was an interesting one. One of my students is an artist, and she had visited Vietnam several times and for her creativity and her own spiritual practices. So we got chatting one day, and I said, "Why don't we run a retreat together and create it around the beauty of ritual and bring in the yogic factor into it?" And it just flowed. So all of a sudden, the two of us were running this retreat. And it was, yeah, a mixture of students of mine and hers.
Wow.
And it was incredible to see, because I'd never been to Vietnam, and to see it through her eyes and for her to see it through mine. Yeah. So we had a beautiful blend of remembering the ritual of some of the practices that, you know, you can take for granted over time. And she took to some gorgeous places, some sacred temples that are a little off the beaten track. So
wow,
the Temple of Shiva and different places. So that was very special.
This sounds beautiful. It sounds like an incredible experience indeed. I've been to Vietnam and I tried to go off the beaten track. But I was unfortunate to not really be able to do much yoga while I was there. It was more the backpacking experience. But I would love to go back. So if ever you do a retreat, I'll keep an eye out and see if I can join, because it sounds incredible. But your artist friend, did they bring in an artistic element to the yoga, or was it a combination of the two?
It was a combination of the two. So she showed us around where her influences were, and she did some one-on-one workshops as well. And while we were there, we had this incredible encounter. A friend back home had just done some voice coaching with a woman, Maya Ayaman, and she was telling me about her, and I'd love to catch up with her when I get home. She said, well, actually, she's just moved. I'm not sure where she's living. And she sent me a message the next day, and she happened to be in Vietnam, and she was moving to Thailand the next day. We landed. Anyway, cut a long story short, we happened to be there on the same day. I managed to contact her, and she came and did a voice workshop with the group the morning after we'd arrived. Wow. And it was so powerful. It set everybody up for the retreat. Normally they would be at that point 3 days in, but they were already cracked open.
It was meant to be then, by the sounds of it. Wow. When you say voice workshop, is that I did a yoga teacher training where we had to sort of close our eyes and make animal noises. Is that what that means, or what exactly?
It's a little bit, but it's so much more than this. This woman was training to be, well, she was an opera singer, a trained opera singer, and she was up for a record contract and all of this amazing stuff, and just felt it wasn't in line with her calling. So she walked away from that, and she started doing singing lessons for people. But while she was doing that, people were healing and having major shifts.
Wow.
So she's now realized that that is her form of healing. And that's what she does. She teaches you how to heal whatever it is you need to heal through your voice and connecting back with your voice.
Wow.
So she, within the small group, she picked every single person what they needed to work on, or what their shadow was, if you like. And she nailed it with every single person. It was quite profound. So that's what she does. These incredible, and she lives in Thailand and runs these workshops in Thailand.
So I need to go to Vietnam, I need to go to Thailand.
Thailand.
Go to New South Wales. There's a lot to do. I mean, completely off topic, but I heard that, I can't remember where, but the arms are directly related to your vocal communication. And funnily enough, so I started doing a little bit more weight, but I also do a lot of yoga. And during my yoga teacher training, for example, my arms were getting bigger. I felt so strong, but I also especially noticed the shift that I had in my communication, in my voice, and the way I was able to communicate. And yeah, off topic, but it just really showed me how connected the body is to in every way, basically.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I also had a little look at your other events out of curiosity, and I spotted some sound bath, or I think it was sound bath ceremonies. Is that with you or is it with another teacher?
Yeah, I've connected with a young woman who lives near us, and she's currently she's studying music, and has done some amazing meditation trainings and other various things. And I just reached out to her and said, "You're doing some really cool stuff." I was following her Instagram. Would you like to collaborate? And yeah, we ran our first one last year, just before Christmas. And yeah, it was incredible. We hardly really just connected vibration. The whole thing ran so smoothly. It was great feedback. So we've booked another 2 for this year. Yeah, and we'll do them probably every 3 months now.
Would that be, for example, just yoga? Are you still doing yoga and then accompanied by the sound baths, or is it, for example, when you're in Shavasana at the end, or are you in Shavasana the whole time? How does it work?
It's a bit of both. So the next one, the last one that we did, I taught a yin yoga class, and Becky had all of her bowls and all of her instruments set up. So she has a few different bowls and a beautiful hanging xylophone and gongs, and yeah, a flute as well. And we just read each other's energy. So as I would stop speaking, I'd cued coming into the pose, they were settled. She'd just choose an instrument and she'd start playing.
Gosh.
So my session went for an hour or so, and then I handed over to her, and it was a sound bath. So everyone was so ready for it. And then she took them into a meditation. So it's a bit of an hour of movement and an hour of sound, but there's underlying sound the whole way through the yoga class as well.
So you would say then that the ideal recipe for a good collaboration when it comes to yoga, at least, would be for you energetically, how you feel with the person, like what makes for a good collaboration?
Having done some that didn't feel so good, if it's hard, it's not going to work on the night.
Okay.
So if the ideas aren't flowing, if you're not meeting the person where they're at, if you don't feel that you're feel safe enough to support them and support each other, just let it go.
Fair enough.
It needs to really flow for your students, your participants, to really feel that energy. It's the least you can do for them.
From what you're saying, though, the level of experience isn't necessarily a factor, because, for example, you have like the music student, and I think there was another person who's an art student, or lots of students. So it's not to do with the level necessarily, or even the experience in duration, but just the vibe.
Exactly. I think if the intention is there, and I think there's this lovely level of innocence as well when you come into it, like, oh, someone's actually seen my gift.
Yeah.
That this is something that people want to know about, that they want to share. It's really sweet. So
Yeah.
you think of yourself, if you go to a class and it's a new teacher, but their intention is really pure, it's a really beautiful experience.
Yeah, I can imagine. Do you think your
Yeah,
intention has changed over since you started teaching as opposed to now?
absolutely.
Good.
Yeah, it was, at the beginning it was, I need to learn sequences and I need to rock people's socks off and all of this, like,
Yeah.
and now it's just, I see you, let me help you to understand your body and get into a beautiful shape that helps you feel safe and nourished, and doesn't matter what it looks like. Yeah.
Fantastic. And do you target, I think I saw maybe for your Blue Mountain retreat that it was for women only, is that correct?
Yeah, I did. I put that on there for that one because so many people had already committed to it that were women. I thought this isn't going to work if there's a couple of guys. We're in quite close quarters. But for other retreats, it's interesting. There have been men, but they've been part of a couple.
Okay.
So yeah, it's not an intention, but that's just how it's rolled. I have males in my classes, but yeah, they don't tend to come on retreats.
Interesting. Do you think that there is some kind of, not a taboo, I'm trying to think of the word, but something where men think that it's not masculine enough to join a retreat, or do you think it's really just nothing to do with that, and it just so happens that men prefer to do another type of activity?
Yeah, I'm really not sure. I'd love to crack that code. Because there are men's retreats, but then there's a lot of men that don't want to go on those either. So I don't know if it's maybe just not a guy thing. I think it is dominated by women generally. So yeah,
Could
I
be
really
a vulnerability thing, maybe. I'm not sure.
yeah, could be
something to reflect on. But yeah, fantastic. So maybe if you just want to say for next year, if you've got anything exciting coming up, you mentioned a couple of international retreats. Have you got any, the Blue Mountain obviously is, well, this year, we're already in 2024, wake up.
yeah.
Anything more that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, so Blue Mountains is in a couple of weeks and that's already full. I'll do another one locally, so it'll either be around Byron Bay area or sort of South Coast, New South Wales for winter. And then I'm looking at doing one in Bali in around September, which is kind of interesting because that's where I went on my first overseas trip when I was 18 years old. Wow. And where I went on my first yoga retreat.
Okay, so going back to
kind of all coming back.
Full circle. I love it. I think you'll maybe encounter something powerful while you're there. I've not been to Bali, but I can imagine it'll be incredible for you.
It's a great place for retreats, for yoga retreats. There's so many options.
And also I think just food wise and the whole scene there is supposed to be incredible. So wow, some exciting things coming up for you then. I would love to join. Unfortunately, it's not quite next door. But if ever I go to Australia, I'll make sure to come by your studio. And yeah, I just wanted to say a big thank you, Fyona, for your time. I know it's a public holiday there in Australia. So yeah, we really appreciate it. And if anybody has any questions for Fyona, you can just reach out to us at Momoyoga and we'll make sure to forward it over to you.
Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you.